You're listening to Big World Network.
Amazing Grace, Episode 6. Written by James Hellvig, read by Meagan Hedin. Tammy watches as the teenagers sweat, working through the series of complex movements comprising the newest kata she's taught them. It had taken 4 months of cajoling the neighborhood youth and parents to get them to take an interest in the program. Thinking back, she remembers how Father Bernard and Mother Steele had voiced doubts initially at the program's application. "You want to teach the children to beat each other up?" Bernard had asked, eyebrows rising. "Not just children, adults too," Mother Steele interjected. Tammy had discovered that the woman is a natural-born wise-ass who loves playing devil's advocate. Rolling her eyes, Tammy said, "Not exactly. I want a safe place they can go to be encouraged and motivated. I'll teach discipline, honor, and respect. All participants will get physically and mentally stronger. We'll trade lessons for labor, 5 hours a week, doing anything you can dream up." "They'd still be learning to beat people up," Bernard said, grinning. Steele snorted, suppressing a chuckle. Tammy began to realize she was being played. Keeping her face neutral, she retaliated with, "Well, a little at first, but only until I get to firearms training." Bernard leaned forward with a frown. Before he could question the last statement, Tammy smiled, winking at him. Mother Steele never even blinked when she said, "I want in on the full auto stuff." Laughing together, they had continued discussing the rules and policies. A student must be in school or obtaining their GED. No gang affiliation on the training floor. Each must donate the required time to pay for lessons. Any arrest or fighting will result in termination. The after-school program is growing quickly. Many of the parents are using it as a safe haven for their kids while they're at work. Mother Steele efficiently uses that angle to promote revenue-generating child care services for the smaller children. It is more affordable than what has been traditionally available, and incorporates the adults, channeling their talents and skills into activities designed to enliven the church and community. The initial success is encouraging. Hands on her hips, Tammy studies the movements with a critical eye. Being a stern taskmaster, push-ups and sit-ups are frequently given for infractions. She is just as generous with praises and hugs. As the class comes to a halt, with the students waiting in the ready position, Tammy yells, "Yame!" Japanese for stop. "Much better, people. Everyone get water. We start applications and tactics in 5. Move!" The young people scatter, used to the routine after only a few weeks. A frequent visitor to the basement-converted training room, Father Bernard motions her to the side. The laughter and boisterousness from the children a few rooms down echoes in the hallway. He says excitedly, "I wanted to be the first to tell you. We have received the first business commitment to our program." Tammy replies, "That's good news. Hopefully we'll get others soon. There are other indicators that we're impacting the area as well." She is referring to the declining local gang activities. Using her ongoing surveillance gathering, she has been passing on information anonymously to the local police. Slowly, it's becoming more difficult for the gangs to operate. Father Bernard is aware of her weekly nocturnal activities and has voiced concerns, but he has found no way to debate the positive effects. Changing the subject, he says, "Alberto seems to have a gift for this." He is referring to a young man of 15 with both natural ability and leadership skills. Nodding in agreement, Tammy replies, "He has promise. It's why I push him so hard." Patting his shoulder, she continues, "Back to work." Father Bernard watches as Tammy strides back onto the matted flooring she'd paid for with her own funds. She's a force of nature, pushy, opinionated, and pig-headed. It's no wonder Mother Steele and the children already love her so. Me too, I suppose. Using Alberto, as she often does to demonstrate a technique, Tammy has him punch at her face full speed. The young man has learned from painful experience not to question her request. Father Bernard winces in anticipation as the young man snaps a hard punch aimed straight at Tammy's nose. Seemingly without effort, she slides her left foot forward, pivoting her body 90 degrees. The punch zips past her head, and her arms are already in position. She demonstrates a number of blinding fast counters, making light contact with each one before ending in a simple takedown. Having narrated the entire time, she reaches down and helps the young man to his feet, saying, "All right, once more, 2 count, with the takedown. Control, people." Chuckling aloud at the rapt young people, Bernard angles towards a small group of watching parents. Poor Alberto. Class is ending and the young people gather their belongings, happily chatting with each other. Tammy is pleased with the progress so far and with the minimal disruptions she's had to deal with. Gang affiliation is banned here, and, with a few minor exceptions, the students respect the neutral ground. Her hope is that the more they get to know each other, the better they will understand how alike they truly are. Watching Alberto, Tammy comes to a decision. Being as unobtrusive as possible, she asks him, "Alberto, can I see you a minute?" "Yes, ma'am," he answers quietly, stepping closer. "I have a proposal for you. If it's not something you'd be interested in, I expect you to tell me, okay?" He nods, curiosity clear in his expression. "I'm selecting a small group for a junior instructor's program. It would negate 3 of your service hours to the church at first, but the eventual purpose would be to teach a younger children's class. That's very different from what you're learning." Tammy can see the excitement building in his expression. Before you answer, understand that it's more responsibility, extra training time, and higher expectations both here and in school. Alberto was thoughtful a moment before asking, "So I would be teaching small kids? I wouldn't be, like, babysitting, right?" Smiling, Tammy replies, "No babysitting. You'd be instilling basic motor skills, character development, and confidence training. It'll take a few months to get it off the ground." "Cool. Do I get paid anything?" Clapping him on the shoulder, Tammy chuckles, saying, "Nope, but you do get a really cool t-shirt. Is that a yes?" Smiling broadly in response, the young man says, "When do we start?" "As soon as I talk to your parents. Come on, I'll walk home with you." The early evening neighborhood is busy with families preparing dinners and trying to wind up their day. A block from Alberto's home, Tammy sees a knot of young men gathered around a parked car on the other side of the street. She recognizes one of them by his street name, Cortez. He's a young lieutenant for a local gang leader. Their attention seems to be more than cursory. Lowering her voice, she tells Alberto, "If anything happens, you stay cool and keep your mouth shut. Stay clear, understand?" The young man nods nervously as they quicken their pace. Cortez laughs loudly as he crosses the street, his entourage of 4 close behind him. "Alberto, who's the lady, you say?" Looking Tammy over from head to toe and smiling lewdly, he and the others block their path. He continues, "You a cougar, bruja?" The gathered young men laugh and snicker, making crude gestures. Stepping forward and meeting the leader's eyes, Tammy replies coldly, "You know who I am, Niño. Call me names if it makes you feel better, but we have places to go. Move, please." Her smile is shark-like. The mob goes silent at her use of the term little boy for Cortez. His face reddens. "Smart mouth, eh? What do you think, Alberto? Maybe after we finish with this bitch I give you a taste." It happens quickly, but as with all real combat, time seems to slow down for those with any real experience. Cortez lurches forward, trying a poorly delivered sucker punch. Sidestepping, Tammy smashes her pivot-assisted left elbow into the side of his face, staggering him sideways. Stepping through and behind him with her right leg, she uses her right arm in an upward scything motion, clotheslining the dazed thug and flinging him over her leg. He crashes into the pavement with a sickening thud. From the corner of her eye, she sees Alberto evading an attack using a similar pivot and smiles. The next member has a build of a weightlifter and is rushing forward, used to using his strength to his advantage. Tammy meets him head-on, using an open-handed strike to the throat, which elicits a gargled "ack." She finishes him with a right snapping kick to the groin. Not used to real resistance and never having trained as a unit, the hapless members are confused and hindering each other's movements. Stomping the knee of the would-be rapist to her left, Tammy steps over the unconscious form of Cortez as the audible sound of the joint snapping and the young man's scream pierces the air. "Aye! My leg! Ow! My leg!" Alberto was shuffling backwards, the 2 larger men trying to grapple him to the ground. "Oh, boys!" Tammy calls loudly. The rearmost attacker turns his head an instant before she kicks him in the groin. As he crumbles, she grabs a handful of his hair and slams him face first into the ground. The last man, his attention divided, is punched twice in the face by Alberto while he was distracted. Roaring in pain and rage, the thug succeeds in bear-hugging Alberto and crashing him into the hood of a nearby car. Disengaging, he turns, squaring off with the calm-faced Tammy incredulously. "What kind of pastor are you?" He punctuates the question with a haymaker. Tammy dodges it easily, blocking the same arm when the idiot tries to reverse it into a backhand. Snapping the joint, she uses the broken limb as a fulcrum to drive him painfully into the side of the vehicle. Taking a deep breath, she helps Alberto off the car, ignoring the moaning man at her feet. "You okay?" she asks. Her young student is looking around in shocked disbelief. Gulping, he nods, saying shakily, "Yeah, a lot better than these guys." Surveying the damage, Tammy sighs aloud, pulling out her phone to call the police and an ambulance. "I wish this hadn't been necessary. Go on home. We'll talk to your parents later." Alberto's face stiffens along with his resolve. "Ma'am," he says formally, "if I'm going to work for you, they can't see me running away." He cuts his eyes to the people starting to gather on each side of the street. Someone has already made the 911 calls. Tammy can hear sirens approaching. Looking at him levelly, she says honestly, "After this, that might not be a good idea." Sneering and shaking his head angrily, Alberto replies, "They had it coming." Then a new thought occurs to him. "Are you going to get in trouble for this?" Smiling gently, Tammy snorts and says, "Can you say shitstorm?" Barking laughter, Alberto's back stiffens with pride. Tammy can almost hear his thoughts saying that if this was what being part of a church was about, he was in.
You're listening to Big World Network.